I think things are finally starting to ramp up in the frequency of what we're hearing out of the Battlefield camp for their next installment, likely called Battlefield 6, but either way, Battlefield's next entry has had a lot of buzz and reports lately. Most recently, we've seen a bit of details surrounding the campaign, but mix that with recent reporting about the campaign as a whole, and we start to see a larger picture take shape. So today I wanted to run down these new details and reports with you. So drop your thoughts, drop a like, make sure to subscribe for more Battlefield 6 and other FPS coverage, and maybe consider following over on Twitch while we're getting back into the swing of streaming regularly over there as well. But for now, let's get into it. So the most recent reporting comes from MP First. New details have come from data mines of the latest Battlefield's lab client. So spoilers ahead potentially, though incomplete and out of context, it is a look at the game's offering. So feel free to skip ahead via the chapters on this video timeline if you don't want anything in particular revealed. But firstly, the Battlefield campaign leaks, the newest ones at least. According to these, it would appear that we have our forces of Pax Armada invading Gibraltar. Your objective is to take back the rock from enemy forces attempting to seize this strategic location. Artillery has weakened Pax's defense systems. Your team, Dagger 1-3, is deployed to support NATO and British forces, including a British unit named Lancer. You land alongside Bravo Element to establish a beachhead, and you have to destroy floating mines to assure allied AAVs can safely reach the Gibraltar shoreline. Advance by accessing Gibraltar's historic Great Siege tunnels through a path beneath street level, and you're finally tasked with neutralizing anti-air batteries by disabling their databanks, allowing NATO air support to proceed. So grand scheme of things, it's pretty linear in nature and what it seems like by this description here. I mean, it kind of is a standard Heroes-esque type of mission you have where your team has to clear a path for the rest of the full frontal assault, utilizing aquatic and land combat, starting you out in the waters, progressing through mines to get to the beach, then clearing tight tunnelways, and eventually destroying AA guns to progress through the story as NATO forces probably make their way inbound as the mission fades to black. So giving us a little context of what we'll see in terms of the linear progression of gameplay and storyline, but grand scheme of things, is this anything that is insanely insightful or groundbreaking? Probably not, but beyond that, we've also seen recently was data mined from prior labs builds was an in-progress sequence that apparently was the finale of a mission to destroy a dam in Tajikistan. Now, the validity of that, to me at least, has been relatively confirmed, as this leak was completely taken down with a copyright strike, meaning that it was something that EA filed through Twitter/X, whatever you're calling it these days. It's still always going to be Twitter to me. But it was something that officially EA had to be like, hey, this is our intellectual property. That's not authorized for use yet. Let's take it down. So if there was any doubt that it was real from what we've seen out of labs and what's been leaked before that, or introduced in a sense, that in particular being taken down confirms it even more to me. Both of which, I mean, they're pretty heavily prominent everywhere. At the very first image we had for Battlefield 6, it was confirmed to be Gibraltar, and one of the maps that leaked out from labs for multiplayer is set in Tajikistan. Side note, I am curious to see what else in the near future comes out of the client, because we've been seeing builds that are closer and closer to the full thing every time there is an update to these clients. So with how much we've learned in the last few months, I mean, what's going to happen in these coming builds still? But anyways, that's some details. One thing that was mentioned in addition to this in regards to the campaign was the campaign length. According to Temporial, data miner, and leaker, what's associated with the game files is a prologue and 8 additional missions taking place across Egypt, Tajikistan, the US, and Gibraltar. So with other reports mentioning that this will be around a 6-hour campaign, when we talked about Battlefield really wanting to compete with things like Call of Duty, that's right about on the nose in terms of the length with the average COD campaign. Now, is that all? I mean, it's a valid question. In quantity, 8 missions doesn't sound like a ton, perhaps. But let's compare both franchises, honestly, Call of Duty and Battlefield campaigns of the past. COD, for comparison there, Black Ops 6 had 11 missions. Modern Warfare 3 had 14 missions, Modern Warfare 2 had 17 missions, Vanguard only had 9 missions, Cold War had 16 missions with some side mission quests that you could do as well, not included in that, and Modern Warfare 2019 had 14. So none of which matching the classics like COD 4 or Modern Warfare 2 from 2009, both of which having 18 missions as that sort of peak. But as for your Battlefield campaigns, a more in-house comparison, Battlefield 5 had 5 war stories and an epilogue. 1 had 6 war stories, Hardline had 10 missions, 4 had 7, 3 had 12, and Bad Company 2 had 12 as well. So in the grand scheme of the Battlefield games, it's more than recent years, not more than ever, but still not necessarily on par with mission totals of games like COD. Length, again, if it's around 6 hours long, well, I mean, that's pretty on the nose for all of those titles that we just mentioned from both franchises, not just one or the other. So it's not necessarily too bad if that's the framework in regards to the campaign that does come with the launch of the game. So frankly, this might actually be a sort of blurry outline of what is entirely planned to be coming. Obviously, without knowing details of the storyline, the missions themselves, it's not quite an accurate depiction or look in at that, but we might have a frame of reference at least for the entire campaign already from Battlefield Labs data mines. Now, is it possible more could be added in the future before the launch of the game? It's been mentioned that Labs is much older builds at sometimes compared to where they're at in development at the moment, like real time, but behind the scenes. So it's possible that maybe they're working on more missions in the data mines we've seen in the past aren't necessarily the most up-to-date things, but with it being relatively in line with about everything else we've seen across this franchise and other competing franchises, I suppose, sure, it could happen, but I also wouldn't necessarily expect anything more than that. Honestly, kind of a safe way to approach this game in general if you are somebody that didn't quite like the last outings of Battlefield, because if you expect less, you'll probably be disappointed less. Though I am rooting for the game, I think it's kind of obvious there's a lot that needs to go right for, like, emphatic excitement to take over. But anyways, talking about that in the campaign, it should be mentioned that recently we did see that unfortunate leak and reporting that Battlefield's campaign may be in trouble. According to that Ars Technica report we talked about recently, with all the sort of lofty goals of launching before the April 2026 backstop they gave us, with the 100 million players they want to reach, the troubling element of that in particular talks a lot about crunch and shortcomings in development that had yet to be made public up until the time of that report, where it was mentioned that Ridgeline, the studio that was developing this campaign, of course, they closed down, but that it seemed like it was always doomed to fail in how they managed that, where it was also mentioned single player was 2 years behind schedule, and as of late spring 2025, it was the only game that did not reach alpha, well over a year after the initial overall alpha target for the project. So obviously that's not great to hear, and that bad news just kept dogpiling as the article went on, where they mentioned without an enormous patch on day one or early access to the game, it's unrealistic to expect them to release it in a 100% healthy capacity, where they said if the single player mode is a linear narrative campaign as originally planned, it may not be possible to delay missions or other content from the campaign to post-launch seasons, and they might have to cut part of the single player out in order for the game to release with a single player on it, or they'd have to severely work through the summer in the later portions of the year. So none of that sounds great by any means when we look at the context of that, but it's definitely curious that all of this seems to be, again, relating back to what we see, not accessible to Labs, but that are tethered to Labs in the build that people do get to play. But I guess at this point, only time will tell as to what is going to be confirmed, what is going to be officially revealed, and we should be coming up here on stuff like that. I mean, with a mention of a summer reveal by those associated with the project, and that the community would know when this reveal would be happening, we're getting to the middle portions of July, and well, July and August, I would say, are like the prime summer months, technically going until September 21st. But for prime summer marketing, I feel like you don't usually see a lot of stuff extend that far out to the very end of summer. So maybe we end up seeing some official things coming up very soon here, but we'll have to wait and see. And for that, that's going to turn it over to you guys. What do you think of these campaign details we learned about for Battlefield 6? Are you guys looking forward to a campaign of Battlefield 6? Or is it kind of an afterthought that, like, if you get bored one day, you'll play it, and if it's not necessarily the best campaign, it's not the end of the world to you? Whatever the case, let me know your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, though, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Battlefield 6 and more FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, that's going to wrap it up. So thanks so much for watching. Might have been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.